Welcome to the Planning for Life podcast with certified financial planner professional Russell Jacobs and financial life advisor Carl Coolidge. Carl and Russell will share creative strategies and ideas for overcoming challenges in your personal and financial life. Inevitably, life happens, and we will empower you to reach your destination. Thanks for joining us. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to episode number 7. Today, we are going to continue our conversation with Carl Coolidge. Last time we talked about the secure process, and we went over the first 3 letters of secure, which was the SEC, and now we're going to be going over the last 3 letters, which is URE. Now, the secure process is a process that Carl and his team has created to help with qualified plans and 401k plans, and it's really an amazing process that really shows a substantial difference between what they do at JCC and what they do at other firms. So, Carl, as we kind of just lead into the podcast today, would you mind sharing with our listeners what the first 3 letters, the S and the E and the C, mean? And then we'll jump into the second half of that word.
Sure. Just to refresh, the S is studying of your plan. The E is exploring or exploration of the details of your plan. And then the C is compel or compel to action. So you take the appropriate steps to make your plan more efficient and in a better format.
Okay. And if anybody wants to hear that first part, if they're just picking up on episode 7, that was episode 5, where Carl and I spent some time talking about the first 3 letters. Okay. Let's talk about the last 3, because the first 3 really just kind of gave everybody an understanding of a lot of what you do at the beginning of a relationship with a qualified or a 401k plan. Let's talk about these URE and what those stand for. So first off, before you get into the depths, what does the U and the R and the E stand for? And then we'll dive in a little deeper.
Okay, great. The U is for understanding your plan. The R is what we call retain, which really deals more with your employees. And then the E is about evaluate, which is really ongoing evaluation of your plan.
Now, the U with understand, I feel, and this is just my own personal experience, it could be way off here, Carl, that a lot of people don't really understand what their qualified plan is at work or what their 401k is. So what do you do with that? How do you help employees and participants gain a greater understanding of the plan?
That is a great point, and you're correct. A lot of people don't understand the plan, and this is really more focused at this point, the U, on the plan sponsor or the company that is maintaining the plan for their 401k participants or their qualified plan participants. So really the U is to help assist the plan sponsor in really understanding their roles and responsibilities, and also to lay out their fiduciary process. We've referenced that term a few times. It's really a buzzword in our industry right now, is having a fiduciary process. And so what we're trying to do is really educate you on the obligations of being a plan sponsor, because a lot of plan sponsors don't realize that they are indeed a fiduciary, or the CFO, CEO in those decision-making roles do have fiduciary responsibility. So it's a really important process to take that seriously. And we really want to help them understand, again, those duties and what it takes to run that plan in a not only a successful way, but a very compliant way. So there's a lot of plans that we encounter that don't have what we call an investment policy statement, or an IPS for short. And really what an investment policy statement is think of it as a business plan for your retirement plan. So most businesses, especially successful ones, have a business plan. And so this is really the same for your retirement plan. So it really lays out establishing those fiduciary process and procedures, how you're going to be able to have parameters on investments in the plan, how you go about education, how you go about monitoring. So what the investment policy statement does is it really gives you or your investment committee clear guidelines on how to run your plan. So there's really no gray area when decisions need to be made, because you have a process in place that determines if X happens, then we take Y action, et cetera.
Okay.
And really lastly in this step, we help you formalize your annual fiduciary calendar. So what that means is there are certain deadlines that have to be met with a qualified 401k plan. So there's some that are monthly, some quarterly, annual, etc., to ensure your plan stays in compliance. And so we want to discuss with you and really help you lay out what that looks like over the course of the year. And what I mean by that is some examples would be you've got to make timely contributions of your participant deferrals. A lot of times we see where plans say, yes, I'm deferring taking money out of participants' paychecks, but we're only submitting it on a monthly or on on a quarterly basis. And what the rules say is you have to do it in a very reasonable, timely manner. So again, that's just to give you one example. You want to make sure that your matching formula or profit sharing contributions, again, are made timely and that they're made correctly, meaning every participant is getting what they're due. Proper filing of documents, if you will, the tax return for a qualified or 401k plan is called the 5500. And so you want to make sure all of that data is in order, working with your third-party administrator to get that done. So it's really about having all the T's crossed and I's dotted to make sure that your plan is running smoothly and in a compliant way. And that's really what the U is all about.
Awesome. You and I have talked about this previously when we talked about the high-level aspect of the secure process, that having a very clear, outlined, structured, compliant, fiduciary-focused 401k or qualified plan can help you retain employees, especially when it comes to educating them about long-term investments and the benefits of being able to save now in a tax-favored manner. The R is for retain. Talk to us about what that means and your experience on how working through a secure process and working with a 401k specialist and a qualified plan specialist can help you retain employees.
Well, that's a great point. Again, you've heard me reference education throughout the secure process. And again, we believe that's really the core of any well-run, good retirement plan. And retain is really about ongoing support of your employees through education. So one of the biggest stresses, and this is easy to find, you can look it up, in individuals' lives is financial stress. And what we've seen, if your employees are financially stressed, then they're not going to be as productive or very focused on tasks that they need to accomplish at work. So we've all had that where we have something else distracting us that's going on in our lives. And so this financial stress can be a big issue for productivity, from a owner of a business standpoint. So when we look at retaining, we really implement what we call our 4R strategy, which is recruit, reward, retain, and retire your employees. So I'll discuss each of those points a little. So an effective and an attractive retirement plan really allows you to recruit qualified employees. So if you have that as a carrot to offer a potential employee, it's going to be more appealing when you show them, hey, we have a great matching contribution, or we have a great structure, or you can get into the plan quickly. Those are all bonuses in addition to their normal compensation. Then we look at rewarding them not only with a well-run, efficient plan, but also in the form of that matching contribution or profit sharing. Because again, plans can make that very attractive where employees can receive 3, 6, 10% additional compensation through a matching formula. Then we also look at retaining these employees because they're not going to be looking for other jobs or opportunities if you have a quality retirement plan. If you assume compensation is even, they're going to look at this and say, well, I get a very good match or a very good opportunity here that I won't get from other companies. And then the retire portion is this allows you to keep good employees around for a long time until retirement because you have this really solid plan and you can feel good that they're going to be able to be on track to retire on their own terms because retirement is different for every person and what that really means. But having a quality plan allows them to focus on that or not to have to focus on that and be able to perform their job more efficiently. So the next part of retain is really focusing on those education activities, which you're going to implement during the year. And so we work with you as we do on the fiduciary side of establishing that calendar. We really want to focus on establishing this education calendar. So whether that be setting up lunch and learns, group or individual education meetings, webinars, because again, we have companies that have different shifts, and so not everybody can do it during the day, so webinars can be effective. We can have targeted discussion topics. If you have an older group of people, say 55 and above, that are in that 10 to 15 year window from retirement, they are interested in different topics than, say, a 25-year-old is. So our goal working with you is to get these specific dates on the calendar so employees can see what's coming up in the future. So they know, okay, in March, X is coming. In April, we're seeing this. And it just shows them how committed you are as the owner of the company to being able to give them a good education plan. And we want them aware of those events, not only to enhance their retirement knowledge, but give them tools they can utilize to really have an impactful educational experience. So you want to provide your plan sponsor or your plan participants with every tool and education opportunity possible to get them on track for a successful retirement.
Well, and the more they know, the more buy-in they're going to have, and the happier they're going to be when they see that money coming out of their paycheck because they understand truly where that money is going. I love your educational calendar. I've worked for many, many companies in the past, and we have not had that educational calendar where you just basically sign out the paperwork or fill out the paperwork when you hire on, or when you're at the employer for 6 months. You have that job for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever the agreement is. Right. And I think that education really does help that retention so much, and also makes you a much more attractive place for people to seek out to hire. Is that your experience?
Absolutely. And that's really, it takes some time and it takes some maneuvering with HR, and all companies have certain commitments they need to make. And as we say, we're not there to disrupt your normal business processes, because that's how you make money, but we're there to complement and work around to make sure they do get this information, because it is very important. And that's really the last piece of this step, retain, is that we continue this education process by allowing them to receive those ongoing educational opportunities through the year. And that's why that calendar is so important. Mm-hmm. We want them to be, as you said, well-informed, be able to ask questions, because again, they're going to have changes in their lives that may require changes in their retirement goals. They're going to have a child, they're going to get divorced, they're going to get married, they might buy a house. All of this has impacts that they want to be able to talk to someone with that's likely not their employer. And the last piece of this is we really want to monitor how well our education efforts are doing. So we can talk about all of this education and we'll be there and provide information, but we really want to look at specific metrics. So we're looking at things like, what is your participation rate compared to before the education and now after the education? Hopefully it's much higher. What are the deferral rates for each participant? Hopefully they're increasing their deferrals each year. Are participants utilizing the website so they're monitoring their investments, on an ongoing basis? Hopefully not too often, but we want them looking at it so they know if their investments are doing well or not. We look at the overall allocation of the retirement plan. We want to make sure that the plan is diversified, which typically means the participants are diversified. Mm-hmm. So having these metrics in place is really a good method in our mind of determining the impact on participants. And it also allows you to see what's not working. Because again, different companies have different demographics and things that need to occur in their plan. So if we can determine, well, lunch and learn isn't very effective, then maybe a webinar is more effective. So mm-hmm. It really helps to be able to measure and say, hey, here are the things that are really working for our plan or not.
Which leads us right into the final letter, which is evaluation. I'm assuming that by the metrics and by what you were just saying about doing an analysis and evaluating what was working, from a client perspective or from a participant and an employer perspective. What do you mean by evaluation? So again, just from the top, we went through understand, we went through retain, and right now we're going through evaluation. What do you mean by that, Carl?
Really, this is looking at your plan on a regular basis for strategies that may enhance your plan, looking at who is your plan provider, what can we do to have better engagement with your participants. We really want you to understand the benefits of doing this monitoring so we can see how things are holding up against your investment policy statement, looking at the current needs of your plan. Because as I mentioned earlier, as life changes, it's the same for the plan. It is important that we systematically review the plan to make sure you're addressing those needs. And what I mean by that is really benchmarking or monitoring all of the fees and costs associated with your plan. So you as a plan sponsor have a fiduciary duty to monitor your plan on an ongoing basis to make sure that your fees, expenses are reasonable. Now, reasonable is obviously a debatable word, but really what it means is you don't have to have the least expensive plan, but for the services you are receiving, is the amount you're paying or that your plan participants are paying, is that reasonable for the amount of service you're receiving? And we think that's important. So we're looking at, is the plan sponsor charging any fees that are extraneous that should not be the case because they were from years ago and now your plan has changed and maybe they aren't necessary or are higher than they should be. As your plan grows, typically the investment cost of those options comes down as you have more assets in the plan. So that's something to look at. Looking at your third-party administrator, who, as I mentioned earlier, really handles the compliance part of your plan. Are their fees in line? Is it time to look at other options to make sure we're holding them accountable? So that's really part of our role, is we're helping provide you, or really giving you all this information so you can make an educated decision to say, are all of these pieces that we're utilizing still reasonable, or we're getting charged appropriately? So we think that's a big piece of this ongoing monitoring, and just to make sure your plan stays very competitive. And to wrap up kind of the last portion of evaluate is we really want to, and you'll see my theme here, Matt, it's very education oriented, but we want to really help your plan promote the benefits of the buzzword that's out there called retirement readiness. And what that is really about is, are your participants actually on track for retirement? So it used to be you just want to get everyone into the plan. You want them deferring some amount of money, which is great. You want them to have a diversified investment options. But now with the readiness, it's important that they're actually deferring enough or making the right choices to get on track for retirement. And for example, if they need to be saving more, we want to make them aware of that. We want to give them tools to say, if you want to reach X retirement, as I mentioned, which is different for every person, then you need to be saving more based on what you're currently saving now. If they want more education on investment options, we want to be able to make them aware of tools that are available and how they can research those options better. If they want to know how they compare to others in their age bracket, because I'll get that question a lot, what's another 30-year-old have saved, or what's another 40-year-old's retirement look like? Well, there's tools and other things that we can look at which will give them some benchmark or comparison, and we find those tools to be important. So in conclusion, I would say at the end of the day, in my opinion, the primary focus of your plan is to provide your employees with the tools, with the knowledge to be able to retire successfully or on their own terms. Because as I mentioned, successful retirement is different for every person. But this is really what we hope to accomplish with the implementation of our trademark secure retirement plan process for our clients.
Would you mind walking us back through all of the letters and what they mean, and then we'll go for some closing thoughts?
Great. Yes, to wrap up is studying your plan is the S, which is really just understanding what's important to you, what your plan looks like, smells like, etc. We really want to understand all those details. Then in the exploration, we're digging a little further under the hood after we find out what's important to you to look at this plan structure, Also look at what's been working, what's not been working for you. The C is compel. This is where we've been able to gather all the data, provide you with information, and we want to compel you to action. Either stay put with what you have, which is an action step because it's in a good place, or actually make a change if it's necessary or if it's to your benefit, the plan's benefit. Then we get into the U, which is understanding. And as I said, this is more tied to your fiduciary roles and responsibilities. And we just want to assist you with really understanding what that requires and that process. The R is for retain. And again, I would say the focus is the 4 R's to recruit, reward, retain, and retire your employees. And then finally, the E is evaluate. And this is really just ongoing evaluation of your plan to make sure that it's competitive, that it's reasonable, and that you're giving your participants the best plan you can.
If you work for somebody, so if you're listening to this podcast and you realize that your 401k qualified plan provider isn't providing these sorts of steps to make sure that not only you as an employer, but also you as an employee are really getting the most out of your qualified plan and 401k, Carl, what's the best way for them to reach out to you to find out more?
You can certainly give us a call. Our number is 912-265-2876, or you can find all the data you need to reach out to us via our website, which is jacobsandcoolidge.com.
Fantastic. Well, Carl, thank you very much for walking us through these steps today.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
And if you have not subscribed to the podcast, please make sure you click the subscribe now button below. That way, every time Russell or Carl come out with a new idea, topic, or piece of information that's going to be important to you, it will show up directly on your listening device. For everybody at JCC, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic for episode number 8 very soon.
The content is developed from sources believed to be providing accurate information. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. The opinions expressed and material provided are for general information and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Russell C. Jacobs III, Carl B. Coolidge, James Jacobs, and William Schwartz are registered representatives of and offer securities, investment advisory, and financial planning services through MML Investor Services, LLC, member SIPC, Supervisory Office, Jacksonville, Florida. Jacobs, Coolidge & Company, LLC is not a subsidiary or affiliate of MML Investor Services, LLC, or its affiliated companies.